I don't walk around every day being like, oh, I want to take photos of myself and I love me. It took me 25 years to even appreciate myself as a person. I used to feel like no makeup in the world could make me feel good about myself.
They called her perfect, but perfection came with a price she could barely afford. Behind the beauty and fame, she faced anxiety, burnout, relentless pressure, while quietly suffering from Lyme disease. Bella Hadid rose to fashion's peak, but what happened that nearly broke her?
Everybody has something to offer, and beauty doesn't have to always be one of them. But I think everybody's beautiful on the inside, and it sounds so cliche to say, but if you have a beautiful soul, it's going to radiate from the outside.
At 17, Bella was still finding herself while being molded into someone else, smiling through pain to fit an image that never felt truly hers. Born in 1996 to Dutch model Yolanda Hadid and wealthy real estate entrepreneur Mohammed Hadid, Bella was no stranger to the limelight. It wasn't always easy to grow up in the spotlight. At first, Bella had different aspirations than her sister Gigi, who was already making a name for herself in the modeling industry. She even enrolled at Parsons School of Design to pursue her love of photography. However, the runway's attraction was too great. She finally entered the fashion industry, which had long surrounded her family, in 2014 when she was barely 17 years old and signed with IMG Models. The rise to the top of Bella Hadid was just phenomenal. She progressed from being a newcomer in the industry to walking the runways for Versace, Dior, and Chanel in a matter of years. Her fascinating presence and piercing gaze made her the new fashion obsession. She solidified her place among the top of fashion by winning Model of the Year at the 2016 Models.com Industry Awards. Behind the scenes, Bella was going through some incredibly difficult moments, even though everyone saw her walking red carpets, owning fashion shows, and looking stunning in expensive clothing. The fashion world, with its crazy high standards, almost broke her completely. Bella shared heartbreaking photos on Instagram, including tearful selfies, revealing the emotional pain she faced in private. She described waking up in tears, putting on a brave face for work, and crying alone at home. I would have these awful depressive episodes where I didn't even know who I was anymore. She opened up in an honest interview.
And realizing that, oh my gosh, every morning my body works for me. My two legs, they can walk me to work. And I'm worried about the pimple on my face. My brain works every day just to give thoughts. My heart works every day to give love. I can use my hands and my feet. And how lucky are we just with that? And so why am I worried about my hair thinning or my acne or the fact that I hated this picture of myself?
She frequently felt as though she was vanishing within herself, despite the industry applauding her attractiveness. She struggled with severe anxiety and felt quite alone when she wasn't in front of cameras. There were terrifying times backstage when panic struck so strongly she felt like she couldn't even breathe. And other days, she simply didn't have the strength to get out of bed. She had smiled and put on a brave front for the cameras, but on the inside, she was struggling to keep her composure. When she eventually opened up online, she revealed something very personal. Her mental health had been deteriorating for years without anyone noticing. The world continued to cheer while she suffered in silence. It seemed to her that no one truly saw the true her. There was constant pressure to achieve these unachievable objectives, to always be flawless, and to hide your struggles from others. Fashion was no longer the only factor in this. It was about attempting to live in a society that demands you appear perfect, even when you're struggling on the inside. Like many in her industry, Bella Hadid convinced herself that pain was part of the job and endured it for years. Beneath her poise, however, her body and mind were silently crying for help. She later revealed that she had been battling Lyme disease, a chronic, often invisible illness affecting her energy, movement, and mental clarity. She had little time to recover from the very profession that required precision, and she frequently worked through flare-ups that left her mentally and physically exhausted. Bella's growing honesty made her journey deeply relatable. Through heartfelt words and raw posts, she showed the world both her beauty and her pain, sharing photos from hospital beds, tearful moments, and quiet admissions of emotional exhaustion. Yet, she never sought to play the victim. She was demonstrating how it's possible to feel lost and vulnerable even at the top, with all the fame and wealth.
Supermodel Bella Hadid is opening up about her long and invisible battle with Lyme disease and chronic illness. Medical records shared by Hadid show that the star was suffering from exhaustion, depression, headaches, muscle pain, and many other symptoms that caused her to step back from the spotlight and focus on healing.
As Bella continued to open up about her struggles, there came a point when she realized that in order to truly heal, she needed to step away from the constant grind of the fashion world. It was a difficult decision for someone who had built a career so deeply rooted in validation from external sources, the cameras, the runway, the endless shoots, but she understood that she couldn't keep pouring from an empty cup. Overwhelmed by the constant noise and demands of the industry, Bella felt her own voice had been lost. She began taking long breaks from social media, reconnecting with her family, and rediscovering passions she had before modeling. She turned to art, especially photography, using the camera to explore who she was beyond model Bella. This quiet step back helped her feel like she had some control over her own life again. And you could tell she was starting to figure out what success really meant to her, not everyone else.
Really life-changing for me because I'm not only working and, making a living for myself and being independent, but also be able to learn every day from the people that I look up to and that I've looked up to since I was a kid.
Her comeback wasn't loud or dramatic. Instead, it was intentional, graceful, and deeply rooted in everything she had learned about herself. In subtle ways, she let the world know that she was still healing, still navigating, but no longer willing to sacrifice her peace just to maintain an image. Bella began using her platform not just to model fashion, but to speak truth about mental health, chronic illness, burnout, and the illusion of perfection. Bella's voice grew louder in other ways too. In 2024, Bella faced backlash for an Adidas campaign linked to the 1972 Munich Olympics tragedy, where 11 Israeli athletes were killed by a Palestinian group. Critics accused Adidas of being tone deaf. The ad was pulled, and Bella clarified she hadn't known the context. She stood firm in her beliefs, saying, "Palestine is not synonymous with terrorism." Once again, she reminded the world that silence was no longer an option, not when truth, identity, and justice were on the line.
Social media star Bella Hadid, who has suffered from Lyme disease for over a decade, opening up in an emotional new Instagram post, sharing pictures of herself hooked up to IVs and undergoing treatments for a variety of illnesses, including Lyme.
Her openness resonated with fans who had watched her evolve, not just as a model, but as a human being trying to survive in an industry that often forgets the humanity behind the image. She started sharing glimpses of her quiet victories, days without anxiety, mornings where she could finally get out of bed without dread, creative projects that made her feel alive again. These moments, though small, marked a powerful shift. Bella was no longer hiding her pain, she was transforming it into purpose. Her return wasn't about proving anything to the industry, it was a message to herself that she had survived what once threatened to break her. That she could walk back into the world not as the broken girl behind the lens, but as a woman who had faced her darkness and chose to keep going. Bella Hadid's story became more than just one of fashion success. It became one of resilience, of owning your truth even when it's uncomfortable, and of reminding the world that strength doesn't always look perfect. She didn't preach, she shared. She didn't pose strength. She showed the raw, messy process of finding it, and that honesty resonated. Fans saw a woman who had it all, yet wasn't afraid to admit when she was breaking. In doing so, Bella became more than a supermodel. She became a symbol for anyone fighting silent battles in a world that rarely gives them space to breathe. If Bella's journey inspired you, share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories behind the spotlight.